Communications Director here at Our Revolution, and I am so happy to welcome all of you to our live Organized to Win Town Hall. And this is a big one tonight, folks. We've got U.S. Reps Barbara Lee, Ro Khanna, Mark Pocan, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, and former U.S. Rep, now Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, all joining us tonight for a powerful discussion on how our movement can organize together to build a more progressive America. We are very excited about this powerhouse lineup tonight, and we're going to be breaking some major news in just a moment, so don't go away. Thank you all for being here. Let's get things started by posting in the chat. Tell us your name, where you're from, and why you're tuning in tonight. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, please like and share to help this live stream get out to as many people as possible. I see Joseph and Aaron in the chat waiting for some more names to roll in. Gary from Ukiah, California is here. Bill Zeman from Norca, California. Now it's starting to roll. Kristen from Bellingham, Washington. Rick Greer from Berkeley. We've got Rory from Oakland. Scott. Oh, Scott, where are you from? You rolled by too quick. Doreen from the Hudson Valley in New York. We've got Erica in Seattle. We have Kadisha in Elkridge, Maryland. Natasha up in Vancouver. She says she's tuning in tonight for women's rights, queer rights, and abortion rights. We've got Jenny Lynn of RREV Orange County. She's the Orange County chair there. That's actually the same place that Barbara Lee is running, is in California, and she says that she's the most progressive candidate in the election. Thank you, Jenny. Let's see who else we have. Jessica Tunis and Ronert Park. She says she strongly supports Barbara Lee. She says we need to send Bernie Sanders a strong ally, and that Barbara's life shows that she is the progressive candidate. She is the peace and justice candidate. Thank you, Jessica. Love seeing your thoughts here in the chat. We've got Robin from Sunbeam. Robin Sunbeam from Ukiah. Lots of folks. Sarah Clark from Sacramento, California. Max Anderson from Lafayette, California. A lot of California people tuning in for Barbara tonight. And Ro, also our other guest. Carol Coyote in Berkeley, she says, Barbara Lee speaks for me. It's what we say in her congressional district. We need her progressive anti-war voice in the Senate. Thank you, Carol. All right, so this is going to be an amazing town hall tonight, and I want to give a big thank you to all our grassroots supporters out there who make everything that we do here possible. Just know how much you're appreciated and the impact that you're making. If you're not already a recurring monthly member of Our Revolution, I want to personally invite you to sign up today and help power this movement. That link is going in the chat right now. And if you're listening in on the phones, press *6 and an operator will get you signed up. Once again, if you're just tuning in, my name's Amanda Nichols. I'm the Communications Director here at Our Revolution, and we're just about to start our live Organized to Win Town Hall. Tonight, we're kicking off the 2024 election season in a big way with a powerful lineup of progressive leaders. That includes U.S. Reps Barbara Lee, Ro Khanna, Mark Pocan, Ayanna Pressley, and Cori Bush, and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. They're all coming together tonight, and you'll hear directly from Barbara about her historic run for U.S. Senate in California. Keep telling us why you're tuning in the chat. Aliana says, we love Barbara. And we've got Quen who says, when we organize, we win. We'd love to hear that. Don't forget to like and share this live stream out on your own social media channels where we've got live streams going on over there. We've got thousands of people tuning in on the phones, on Zoom, on social media. We want to get as many people packed in here as we can. We've got just a few minutes before our live town hall officially kicks off. So let me read a few more comments. We've got Ellen from Elk Grove. We've got Natasha who says she's tuning in for Indigenous sovereignty. Cheryl Ewing says she is expecting change. Bill Zeman says, go Barbara Lee, the anti-war candidate, with many, many exclamation points. Who else? Oh, Teresa says she's a supporting member of our revolution. Teresa, thank you so much. Folks, if you want to follow Teresa's example, make sure we can have more amazing town halls like this, gather our movement together and our mission for change. We would love to have you as part of the Our Revolution family. Garth Salfield says he's already got Keith's new book. Love you, Keith. We got love coming out for Barbara Lee and many of our other big guests tonight. Oh, we got Jeff Dickler in Ringe, New Hampshire. We've got Veda Flores. She says, yay, Barbara Lee. We need a national voter registration day. Pam Thomas Hill says, Barbara, an actual progressive. And Deb Robinson says, hi to everyone from Vermont. Good to see some Vermont folks tuning in. California, New Hampshire, Maryland. This is going to be a huge call. And we are so glad to have all of you with us. Folks from Pasadena, folks from Edinburgh, PA, not too far from me. That's Peter out in Edinburgh. We've got Lynn from Mystic Healer, Oregon. No, Lynn Mystic Healer from Oregon. Sorry about that. Lester from Stockton. Angela Marino from Pomomowoc, California. We've got Barbara from Sacramento. And David Bolton from Dana Point, California. Tessa from San Pedro and Ginny from Philadelphia. Mary Beadle from North Carolina. Wow, what a huge turnout we have in the Zoom room. But we've also got thousands tuning in online. So with that, I think we're just nearing our start time of 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And without further ado, let me hand it over to our host for the evening, Our Revolution Executive Director, Joseph Gevarghese. Joseph.
Thank you, Amanda Nichols. Brothers and sisters, my name is Joseph Gevarghese. I'm the Executive Director of Our Revolution, and I want to welcome all of you to our live Organize to Win Town Hall. We've got over 10,000 progressives joining us tonight on the phones and right here in the Zoom room. We are gathering together because we're united in a mission to organize to win a more progressive America, an America that puts people over profits, an America that lives up to our democratic ideals. At Our Revolution, we've got an inside-outside strategy to win social and economic change. On the outside, we're mobilizing the grassroots to rise up and fight for progressive policies, from raising wages to winning universal health care. And on the inside, we are doing the work to elect progressive champions who will fight alongside us, alongside our movement at every level of government. And that's why tonight I am excited to announce that we're going to officially kick off the 2024 election season. Starting right now, we're organizing to accomplish 3 strategic priorities. Number 1, we've got to go all out to defeat Trump and the radical GOP. Number 2, we've got to take back the U.S. House. And number 3, we've got to send Bernie more allies in the Senate and take out enemies of progress like Kirsten Sinema. The first big contest of 2024 is California. And that's why in just a few moments, we're going to be hearing directly from United States Representative Barbara Lee on her historic campaign for the U.S. Senate. Brothers and sisters, Barbara has been a true progressive movement leader. I've had the opportunity to know Barbara for over a decade, and she has been in the trenches with our movement. She's been in the trenches to take on corporate power and to fight for peace and justice. Barbara has stood on the right side of history, even when that meant standing alone. We all know about Barbara's lone prophetic vote against the disastrous invasion of Afghanistan and her courageous stand against the military-industrial complex. But what you may not know is that Barbara Lee has been a consistent progressive fighter for working people, and she's been a thorn in the side of the corporate class for decades. And don't just take my word for it. A report card by govtrack.us shows that Barbara Lee has the most progressive voting record in Congress. Not only that, Barbara Lee is also one of the most effective progressives in our nation. She has passed over 100 pieces of legislation during her time in the United States House and as she served in the California legislature. Let me break it down. Barbara Lee was the first to introduce a single-payer healthcare bill in California, and she is an original co-sponsor of Medicare for All in Congress. That is one of our movement priorities. Barbara was one of the first to fight for 15. A decade ago, when I led the first strikes of low-wage workers in Washington, D.C., Barbara was one of the few Democrats who joined workers on the picket lines. It was her, it was Bernie Sanders, Keith Ellison. It wasn't the Democratic establishment. Barbara is also one of the first climate champions. She has long opposed taxpayer-funded giveaways to big oil, and she's pledged not to take money from the fossil fuel industry. And Barbara is a champion for America's women. She authored California's Violence Against Women Act because she had the experience of coming out of an abusive relationship. She leads the Congressional Pro-Choice Caucus because she had the experience of having to go through with back alley abortion. And she was one of the first public advocates for LGBTQ people, writing California's landmark Hate Crimes Reduction Act. Barbara, in her career, has worked closely with Bernie Sanders. In fact, they co-founded the Congressional Progressive Congress back in the day. And Barbara and Bernie are still progressive partners. They just introduced a bill together to tax the rich. While other politicians seek the limelight, I'm going to tell you, Barbara Lee is focused on doing the right thing for its own sake. She's not seeking fame or fortune. This has never been about her. It's always been about getting things done with us and for us as a movement. And that's why Barbara has earned the most endorsements from her progressive colleagues, our movement allies. The people who are in our corner include Pramila Jayapal, chair of the Progressive Caucus, Bernie Sanders, 2020 co-chair, Ro Khanna, the CPC PAC co-chair, Representative Mark Pocan, squad members Ayanna Pressley, Jamal Bowman, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. The list goes on and on. Movement elected officials are in her corner. And based on the conversations that our team has had with our revolution supporters in California and around the country, it is clear that Barbara Lee is the candidate of the progressive movement in the U.S. Senate race in California. And that's why tonight, brothers and sisters, I am thrilled to announce that our revolution is endorsing Barbara Lee in her race. Barbara does not just talk the talk, she walks the walk, and the progressive movement needs her as a partner in the United States Senate. Barbara, welcome to our Organize to Win Town Hall. Wonderful to see you.
Joseph, let me just say to you, my brothers, this is, first of all, an exciting night for me. And I just want to thank everyone who is with us tonight. And also, let me just thank our revolution, because this endorsement is really what the country needs, what our state needs to make sure that, and Joseph, you're a leader in this movement, which is what it is, to make sure that the climate crisis is addressed with bold, and I mean bold solutions, that we address our democracy and make it real, and make sure that not only do we protect and defend it, but that we make it work for everyone. And that, of course, we make the rich pay their fair share. And, that's the only way we can address income and racial inequality, which is really the reason we all know that underpins this, and that's corporate greed. And so, Joseph, I just want to thank you and our revolution for leading not only our revolution, but our movement, because and thank you for that really expansive introduction, because I've been out there sometimes by myself early on. I mean, even as a teenager, fighting for progressive values and for progressive change. And I'll mention that my first election in just a minute. But I want you all to know that this means a lot to me, and I'm so pleased that all of you are here tonight. And also my colleagues who are in Congress with me. I mean, they are leading the way on so many issues. Our Attorney General, who I miss tremendously, but who's leading the charge on criminal justice reform and real public safety. It's just heartwarming and humbling to be with all of you tonight. For those of you who don't know me, yes, my name is Barbara Lee, and I'm here really for one reason, and that's to join with my brothers and sisters from our revolution and beyond, to say very loudly and clearly that we've had enough, and I mean had enough of all these establishment politics that have driven the American agenda for too long. And at the basis of this is corporate and, yes, individual greed. And we know this. During this campaign, we will bring together working families of California to defend our democracy, which I have been doing from day one, of course, as an African-American woman. Who better knows this than people of color and than Black people? We've had to defend our democracy and fight for it since day one, for our voting rights. It's so critical also that we fight to deliver economic justice and racial justice and protect our planet from the existential threat of climate change. The country, quite frankly, it's sick. And I have to just say that because, we've been infected by greed, creating an economy that funnels wealth to the top. Now, as someone who has a background in mental health, yes, I'm an MSW, I have a background in clinical social work. I understand the mental health needs of this country, first of all, and what's taking place, but I also know sickness when I see it. And I know the cure. And we must eradicate poverty, exterminate this corporate welfare, and us in this austerity for working families, and yes, for the poor. I always have to say working families, low-income families, and the poor. So I'm running for the Senate, and tell me when my 10 minutes is up, because I'm really fired up tonight, Joseph, because I want our other speakers to be able to speak. But I know what it's like to worry about having a safe place to sleep, personally. And I'm running for the Senate because I know what it takes to deliver meaningful material change. And I know that when I'm elected, I'm going to fight like you all are fighting, with this movement behind me, to expand voting rights, to push for ambitious climate change policy, to put a cap on corporate monopolies, and finally to pass Medicare for all. And thank you for mentioning the fact that, yes, way back when I was in the legislature, no one would step up and introduce the first single payer bill in California, and I did. And so let's be clear, this campaign, it's not about me, it's not about Katie Porter, it's not about Adam Schiff or anyone else. It's about delivering for the working people and low-income people and poor people, the most vulnerable people who've been shut out. It's also about fixing what is broken, but it's also about disrupting and dismantling policies that keep people from living over the edge and on the edge. And I know that very well. I know it very well because there simply can't people, and some of our candidates can't understand what it's like to be one of the 20 million Californians who are one paycheck from where I was in terms of falling into poverty. But I know that because I've been there, and I will always fight for those working people, poor people, low-income people who, like myself, were living on the edge, didn't know what to do, low wages, couldn't afford childcare, couldn't afford housing, had to be on public assistance. But I knew where that was coming from. I knew it was because of the economic policies in this country that created the haves and the have-nots. And I know what greed is all about. And so I have to just say to you that this rigged economy penalizes the poor, it penalizes people of color, it penalizes working people, it penalizes the working class. And I know this, I've lived this. And now, unfortunately, in California, Joseph, and I don't know if you all saw this report, California has the highest poverty rate of any country, any state in our country. So it's a great moral and political and economic issue of our time in California, in the golden state of California. So yes, I've written legislation with Bernie to make corporations pay more by taxing CEOs and Wall Street speculators, because there's something, again, as I said, profoundly sick about the inequality affecting our country. Also, let me just say a couple of words about the climate crisis, because this is a climate emergency. And I stood with our young people and our members of Congress just last week, calling for the president to declare a climate crisis. The planet is burning. Millions of homes and buildings need to be weatherized. Our transportation system needs to be energy efficient. And we need a tax on carbon to accelerate the transition away from fossil fuels. And yes, I took the no fossil fuel pledge, not because this campaign started or I'm running for the Senate. I took the pledge even before I thought about running for the Senate. And so I've been there from day one, trying to make sure that our planet is saved for the future generations. I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, in a Black and brown immigrant community. There was a plant very close to our community, not even a mile away. It was called the Arsarco smelter plant. And let me tell you, people in my neighborhood, because of the pollution and the toxins that were emitted from that smelter, my mother had COPD, my grandfather had chronic bronchitis, my sister has multiple sclerosis, you name it, everyone in our neighborhood. Thank God, I don't know what happened. I've somehow survived that. But that forced me to understand what being a real environmentalist was about as a young age, because I knew that that was wrong. They were doing that just because we were Black and brown people. And so just know, fighting for environmental justice. I'm working with Congressman Raul Grijalva now on our environmental justice bill, the Donald McKeachum environmental justice bill. If you have members of Congress who aren't on that bill, I'm going to take a minute to say, please ask them to get on that bill, because our young people deserve a planet that is safe, that's healthy, and that's not burning. Finally, I'll just say to you, because I know my time is just about up, that our democracy, is very fragile. I was sitting on the floor of Congress on January 6th. This was an attempted coup, and I was there, and we almost lost our democracy. We almost did not complete the peaceful transfer of power because of the instructions of an autocratic leader, Donald Trump. We survived, our democracy survived, but it's fragile. We have to do everything we can do to protect our democracy and bring those responsible to justice. And it didn't just start there. When you look at all of the people who came forward to protest against the passage of the Affordable Care Act, when you look at all of those who have been fighting to make sure that white supremacy prevails in this country, when you look at who has been trying to topple our democracy, we know who they are. And we stopped them this time, but we have a long way to go to make sure that they are held accountable and that we protect our Constitution and democracy. And I am so proud to be the lead plaintiff in the lawsuit sponsored by the NAACP to hold Donald Trump, the Proud Boys, and the Oath Keepers accountable, because this can never happen again. And so just know voting rights, protecting our reproductive rights, first time a constitutional right has ever been taken away from us, LGBTQ plus rights, environmental rights, the right to organize, all these rights are being taken away. And this is part of our democracy. And so we have to fight to preserve these rights, to secure these rights, and to make sure we pass the Women's Health Protection Act so that we can codify into law Roe versus Wade. So I'll stop now, and I just want to thank everyone for being here, but just know that being a progressive for me has meant fighting for progressive change for day one. It has meant fighting to make sure our democracy prevails. It means fighting for the fight for 15, and shame on us fighting for an increase to the minimum, for the minimum wage. We've got to fight for a living wage everywhere in California and throughout the country. And we've got to fight to make sure that our planet is here, that is safe, and is not destroyed for future generations. So thank you all again, Our Revolution. You mean so much to me, because this movement is a revolution. It's a revolutionary movement. Many of you know some of the movements that I've been involved in for many years. They were all about systemic change. They were all about closing the gap between the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor. The movements I've been involved in have always been fighting corporate greed and trying to make sure that there's some fairness in our tax system and that corporations pay their fair share. So I'm not new to this, but for those of you who are just meeting me, just know that I want to be with you in this movement, and I want to take this movement to work with Bernie in the Senate to have a larger and more I would say a more vocal and a bolder movement with many of us in the Senate who are going to make sure that happens. Because you know what? Representation matters. We need a Black woman in the Senate. You know, Black women fight hard for everybody and for real systemic change. So thank you all again very much. Really appreciate being with you. And I want to thank all of my colleagues and Congressman Ro Khanna for co-chairing my campaign. It means so much, Ro, if you're on, to have you there helping me day and night. I mean, this is a co-chair of a campaign who's hands-on. So thank you again so much, everyone. Joseph, thank you.
Barbara Lee, thank you very much, sister. I want to make sure that everyone on this call who has been inspired, and I saw several people who flipped their votes or made up their minds to support you on this call. Barbara, I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to get involved in this campaign. We are kicking off a Barbara Lee organizing team of grassroots progressive activists in California and around the country. We need to make sure, right? Barbara's always had our back as movement activists. This is now our time to have her back. For those of you who are in the Zoom room, we're going to drop a link where you can sign up to be part of our distributed organizing team. For those of you who are joining on the phones, press *6 to be a part of Progressives for Barbara Lee. I might be wrong, I might be press 1. That being said, I want everyone to get involved. If our moderators in the chat can let us know that those links are there. But get involved. We're going to be making calls. We're going to be doing events. We're going to be reaching out to our neighbors to make sure that Barbara Lee speaks for all of us and represents our movement in the United States Senate. With that, we've got an all-star lineup, and I want to make sure that in this hour we get a chance to hear from all of these amazing progressive leaders who have Barbara's back. I want to bring up one very special champion, Representative Ro Khanna. Ro was a co-chair of Bernie's 2020 campaign. He is an ally in our inside-outside strategy to fight for healthcare for all, to fight against student debt. and he is also a co-chair of Barbara Lee's U.S. Senate campaign. Ro, welcome to our Organize to Win Town Hall.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for your leadership, going all the way back to starting the fight for 15. People don't know that you were really the brainchild behind that, even before Senator Obama. And really, it's an honor to have you leading OR. And thank you, Amanda. And what an honor to have our Revolution's endorsement for progressive icon Barbara Lee. I mean, I believe that our revolution is the gold standard when it comes to the progressive movement. What Bernie Sanders built with my good friend Larry Cohen and others. He didn't start running for president in 16 when some of us backed him, and then in 20 where I co-chaired him to become president of the United States. That was sort of happened later. He ran to build a movement, and the outgrowth of that movement is all of you. And so the Our Revolution organization really is at the heart and soul of what it means to be progressive in this country. And you have no bigger presence, maybe in Vermont, I don't know, but the next bigger presence is in my home state of California, which Senator Sanders carried overwhelmingly, thanks to all of the people on this call. So I believe that this endorsement, I mean, the media may not talk about it, and they look at the big numbers, and the other candidates have a huge war chest. But let me tell you, when you're a Black woman in America representing Oakland, you're not going to raise as much money as if you represent Hollywood or Silicon Valley like I do. I mean, that's just a fact of life. That's not how you win elections. What's going to win this election is the activists and the people on the ground. And it's going to be all of you that are going to take Barbara Lee over the top. It's a progressive state. It's a multiracial, multi-ethnic state. Barbara Lee is the perfect candidate. Now, let me just say a few words about Barbara Lee and why she's an icon. It's not just her historic vote that's going to make her the strongest anti-war voice in the United States Senate ever. I mean, she was the lone vote who said, don't give a blank check to George W. Bush. It's not just the fact that she's been the strongest voice and vote to make sure that we don't have an authorization of force that keeps us in Middle East wars, trying to repeal the authorization of force that got us into Iraq in the first place, working with Republicans to do that. Why does it matter now? Because we don't want to get into a war with Iran. We don't want to get into other Middle East wars. That's Barbara Lee's work with the Republicans, by the way. It's not just that. It's not just that she was the original co-sponsor of the single payer movement before it was cool. Now we have like 90, 100 people on that Medicare for All bill. This was before me, before Pramila, back when there were 5, 10 people, Barbara Lee was there. It's not just that she has led the fight for a living wage, which she has before it became popular. It's not just that she has led the fight for racial justice against the mass incarceration of people with marijuana convictions and drug offenses with the Marijuana Justice Act. It's not just that she has talked about the empowerment of Black and brown people and minorities to build wealth, to have home ownership, to have access to the American dream. It's that Barbara Lee literally is linked historically and in real life to progressive icons. I was going with Jimmy Carter, and Barbara was driving. I mean, she still drives. She's a humble person, and we were driving to the church, and she started talking to me about how when she met Desmond Tutu and when she met Nelson Mandela and what it was like to talk about Nelson Mandela's struggle in apartheid and how she was one of the voices against apartheid. I mean, when you start to talk about someone so deeply linked to the Nelson Mandela's anti-apartheid movement, to Desmond Tutu's movement for truth and reconciliation, which inspired her own work on reparations and truth and reconciliation in America, how is there even a contest? How is there anyone who is better served as a progressive to represent the state of California or to be in the United States Senate? See, it's not just about a voting record. It's not just about, okay, I checked the boxes, I co-sponsor Medicare for All, Green New Deal. It's, do you understand movement politics? Do you understand the sacrifices that people have made for the freedoms that we have? Do you understand the struggles? Are you really going to fight and take unpopular causes? Do you understand and have a link to history? that Barbara Lee does, from Mandela to Desmond Tutu to Ron Dellums, who was chaired the Armed Services Committee and was voting against these defense budgets. Who's going to go there and stand up against the defense budgets and handouts to defense contractors? It's Barbara Lee. She will win this race. I'll tell you why she will win this race. Because California is a progressive state. California is a state that voted for Bernie Sanders overwhelmingly. That night, I thought he was going to be the nominee of the party, until all of the dropout and all that stuff. And we know what happened. But the point is, he was going to be the nominee because of his big win in California. So I know we could win this state. You guys were so strong. You put me as the co-chair with Amr Shergill help of the entire California convention. I tied with the votes with the governor because of your efforts. So what do we need to do? We need to mobilize. I'm gonna be shameless. Please, if you're on this call, go to barbaralee.org, give $1, give $5, give $3. It doesn't matter. Give $100. We need every single person to contribute to her, because that's what's going to help overcome the super PAC money, the big money. I mean, there were just people saying, oh, I don't want to do a super PAC for Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee's not going to get the super PAC money. That's going to go to the other candidates. She's going to win with the grassroots. We need the grassroots army that Bernie Sanders had, that progressives had. If you can do that, that's one of the things that's going to win. The second thing that's going to win is we need you talking on social media and organizing for Barbara Lee. I know if we organize, if we get out the vote on social media, on calls, on all of the things our revolution is going to do, Barbara can win. Third, let's work together on CalCare, single payer bill in California. We need to deliver that. I mean, California has a supermajority. We can do single payer in California. And by the way, Barbara has stood for that. Barbara and I were the only two members of Congress in the California delegation that stood for the Last Chance campaign. Don't have oil drilling in residential neighborhoods and no new oil permits. No one else was willing to sign other than Barbara Lee. So let's work on the California initiatives. I'm getting the hook. I'm just so passionate about Barbara. Please don't just support her on this call. Go online tonight. Let's volunteer. We're going to make history. We're going to put a true icon in the United States Senate. I'm really honored to co-chair her campaign, as honored as I was to co-chair Bernie Sanders' campaign.
What a ringing endorsement, Ro. Thanks for taking the time out to join the Our Revolution community and voice your support for Barbara Lee. Again, I want to encourage everyone who is listening to sign up. Organized money is going to beat big. Organized people is going to beat organized money in this race. And that's what it's going to take. So if you are on the phones, plus *6 to join our Progressives for Barbara Lee campaign. If you are in the chat in the Zoom room, sign up using the link. And as Rose said, this campaign is going to be people powered, but we're also going to take a fighting stance, because you know what? We've got events coming up with Barbara, with Ro, to end fossil fuel drilling, make sure the setbacks that the state legislature passed in California stay in place. We're going to do a town hall on education for all with the San Francisco Education Alliance. We're going to do a town hall with medical debtors and to highlight the fight for CalCare and for Medicare for all. This is a people-powered campaign that is driven by issues. So I want to invite everyone to get involved. That's what this campaign is about. With that, again, thank you, Ro. I want to bring up our next guest, United States Representative Ayanna Pressley. Ayanna is a proud squad member, and she has worked with Barbara recently to stand up for abortion rights. Representative Pressley, welcome to our call.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Our Revolution family. I know that, you all could have been anywhere else but here. And it says so much that you have decided to join in virtual community for this historic endorsement and this historic convening. It is good to join you virtually. I'm so grateful for your collective efforts and your contributions, your sweat equity on the ground in California and across the nation. You are organizing and mobilizing to advance essential progressive priorities. And we are certainly powerful. So many issues that people have tried to fringe or marginalize are now a part of the mainstream. And that is because we have to advance policies that go as bold and as deep as the hurt and the harm. And policy is my love language, because every hurt and harm is one that was legislated. And so if we know already what it is to live in the present and in the residual aftermath of legislated hurt and harm, we need lawmakers committed to legislating equity, healing, and justice. And like Barbara Lee, my big sister, said, she's OG squad. I'm saying that, but like my big sister, Barbara Lee, said, she's not new to this. We like to say in activist circles, she's not new to this, she's true to this. And the best predictor of the future is the past. And the fact of the matter is that Barbara has led with conviction during some of our most consequential times as a nation. She has led on everything from HIV and AIDS, when no one or very few were stepping up. She's not afraid to use the P word, and that is poverty. She has been actively legislating and doing the work of alleviating poverty and anti-poverty initiatives. She was anti-racist before there was such a phrase coined by Dr. Ibram Kendi. She led on Medicare for all, and she knows that justice is global, and she's taken that fight globally and championed peace and diplomacy over war. And she knows that freedom begins with bodily autonomy, and has been a stalwart champion in the fight for abortion justice and reproductive rights. She's not new to this. She's true to this. I do believe another world is possible. I believe that we can build that world, one where people are prioritized over profit, where we have a politics not of transaction, but of transformation. And let me just say this. People often wax poetic about the roles that Black women play at the polls, on the ballot and at the ballot box, the most reliable voting constituency for the Democratic Party, and the contributions of Black women. That's why I'm so glad to hear everybody and how they're setting the record straight and giving Barbara Lee her flowers, because historically Black women have been relegated as a footnote or their contributions erased completely. Barbara Lee has the empathy, she has the expertise, she is qualified, she is ready, and she can win this. And it is unacceptable that there is not a Black woman in the United States Senate. And so I thank all of you for coming together today. I'm so grateful to this powerful, progressive Black woman who laid out the blueprint and the foundation for myself and so many others who have followed behind her. So, weekly, maybe even daily, I find myself asking, what would Barbara Lee do? And I aim to move with the same foresight, accountability, and deep commitment to community that has guided not only her time in public office, but truly her life's work. So it is, again, a great joy to be with Movement family this evening. I think the case has been made for the importance and the power of representation, and that representation married with track record, with brilliance, and the policies of my friend, my mentor and big sister, Barbara Lee, I know will be transformative. I'm from Massachusetts, and I'm fortunate to have two progressive senators, and Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren, respectively. So I know the power of that. She will be California senator, but she will be our senator. She will be the people's senator, and everyone will benefit from Barbara Lee in the Senate. Barbara Lee speaks for me.
Amen, Representative Presley. Again, thank you for joining us. One quick question. OG, I've heard you and other members of the squad refer to Barbara as OG. You want to tell us where that came from?
I think I might have been the one that actually gave her that that name, that characterization. It's just really, again, I wanted to give her flowers because, first of all, the squad has always been bigger than 4 or 6 members of Congress. You know, anyone doing the work of building a more equitable and just society is a member of the squad. But the reason why I say she's OG squad is because I just wanted to set the record straight that we were new to Congress, but the work of advancing progressive policy, of disrupting the status quo, that there were people who came before us doing that work and who made that road a little bit easier for us. And also, the second we arrived in Congress, she extended a hand of partnership and an embrace of sisterhood. So, we are one movement family, one progressive family, and doing the work stridently together, and really what I would consider to be the work of liberation and freedom. Another world is possible. We just have to organize for it and have to be intentional in building it. And I trust Barbara Lee to deliver on that.
Representative Presley, thank you for joining us tonight. You heard it from Ro, you heard it from Ayanna. Barbara Lee has been a leader in setting the agenda for a moment. She's been marching with us in the streets, and she's been mentoring movement leaders who serve in Congress. We now, these elected officials who serve alongside her now want her as their partner in the United States Senate. That should mean something to us, brothers and sisters, as movement activists. Again, take up the call that Representative Presley, that Representative Khanna, that Barbara gave us. Join the organizing team. Let's make this a people-powered campaign. With that, I want to bring up another leader in our movement. He is a national board member of Our Revolution. He's a former co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He is the prosecutor who put George Floyd's murderers away. He is a voice for justice in our country. Attorney General Keith Ellison, welcome, brother.
Hey, good to be with everyone tonight. I was so excited to get on listening to one of my new favorites, Ayanna Presley, talk about one of my favorites for many years, Barbara Lee. It was just exciting to hear, these wonderful, principled leaders of integrity lifting each other up, because that's what we all have to do. So let me just say that we are in a critical moment at this time, and I think it is very important that we take stock of the moment that we're in. As you know, I recently became the Attorney General about 4 years ago. I used to be in Congress with Barbara Lee, and unfortunately, I left right at the time that Ayanna Presley and Cori Bush and other leaders were coming in. But I'm still with them mentally, morally, emotionally, cheering them on. But I went to be Attorney General, and let me tell you, prosecuting people who hurt others is part of the job. So when Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd, and that's not the only case we've done. We've had to hold a lot of official misconduct accountable. But it's a job that's just got to be done because people deserve to have equal justice. And equal justice is based on prosecutors who are willing to do the right thing. You might contrast the work we did with that of Daniel Cameron in Kentucky, who's trying to be the governor right now. Daniel Cameron had a chance to do the right thing for the memory of Breonna Taylor, walked past it, lied on the grand jury. But we stood up and we organized a prosecution that, we thought was befitting the facts and the moment. So I wrote a book about it. And the book I wrote about it is right here. It's called Break the Wheel. Which wheel? The wheel of injustice. The wheel that grinds over people who are seeking justice. At the end of the day, I think that there's really only a few things that will stop the wheel from rolling over people, and that is prosecuting criminal conduct, whether or not the person doing it has a badge or not, holding them accountable to equal justice, lifting up the lives of people. And then the other thing is meaningful administrative action. Derek Chauvin had 18 prior excessive force complaints before he ever met George Floyd. If you were to rank the Minneapolis police officer with the most offenses against the one with the least, Derek Chauvin would not be in the top 10. He would not be in the top 10. He had 18 excessive force complaints, and there were many people who had many more than him. So we've got to hold these folks accountable. But the other thing we've got to do, and which is really what I want to talk tonight, is that we have got to understand that the weaponization of the crime narrative is something that we don't have to sit back and take. Why? Because progressives are for safety. We're for public safety. Everything we do in every other area is about safety. When we say we're going to prosecute wage theft, it's to safeguard the economic security of the family. When we say we're going to stand up for healthcare access for all, when we're talking about single-payer healthcare for all, that's a security argument. That's an argument to safeguard people. So we're not against safety. We're for safety. What I think we do is, when it comes to criminal justice, we have too narrow of a vision. And here's some ideas. One of the things that I've learned is that a lot of the crime and harm that people suffer from is not just because people's doing bad acts on the street. A lot of this bad stuff that people suffer from starts way back. I'll give you an example. We're trying to stop gun violence. So we found somebody who was selling guns to a gun trafficker. That gun trafficker sold a gun to a shooter who killed a beautiful young woman named Markeisha Wiley. So we found out that this gun seller sold 37 guns of the same mark to the same person, who then sold them on the street and resulted in the death of Markeisha Wiley. So we sued that gun seller. What if we went upstream and held corporate irresponsibility accountable when it comes to public safety? Oh, and not just guns. What about Kia Hyundai? We know that auto theft and carjacking is a problem all over the country, And yet we know that if your average car on the street, 98% of them have a anti-theft device. But if you go to Kia and Hyundai, only about 26% of them do, and most of those are the new ones. Kia and Hyundai realized that they can reduce the cost of their vehicles by not putting standard equipment like anti-theft devices in, and they must do a recall and put these anti-theft devices in these cars. So people want to blame the kid who stole the car. And I'm not saying that kid shouldn't have to answer for the wrong that he did. But what I am saying is, what about the corporate executives who know that you can go up on YouTube or TikTok and see how to steal a car just like that? And then why stop there? There's a lot of neighborhoods where we call them bad neighborhoods. They're full of good people, but we how we do. We call them bad neighborhoods. But a lot of those neighborhoods got slumlords in them, got businesses like, some liquor stores and pawn shops and other places that tolerate a certain amount of mayhem and feed on the desperate nature of the people. And so what we're doing is we're using the nuisance statute to hold some of these folks accountable. That's what we're doing. We're holding these folks accountable and making sure that they have to answer for the wrong that they're doing. And we believe that if we go upstream, if we hold corporations like ExxonMobil and Kia and these gun sellers accountable, the crime rate will go down. Just think about the guns on the street. America has more mass shootings than we have days in the year in 2023. We've got to do it. So what I say to you, my friends in the progressive community, don't shy away from standing up for public safety. Lean into it. But you can, if you lean into the solutions I'm talking about, which is using civil tools to go upstream, you can reduce police brutality, you can reduce mass incarceration, and you can make communities safe. And these are the kind of solutions that we've got to have. We've got to have creative solutions that answer real problems. I got a friend of mine who's a great progressive. The other day, 4 young men attacked her, beat her up in front of her kid, and stole her car. I can't tell her that it's the society. Those guys who did that are wrong. But I can say that making the car so easy to steal, promoting social media, literally teaching people how to commit crime is wrong, and we've got to do something about it. And it is all right to have sympathy for victims of crime. These are, let's see what we can do to make, people who are victimized by rape, robbery, murder, and have some real compassion for them. It's not non-progressive to do that. It's progressive to do that, but we need to go upstream. We know that prosecutors need to stand for things like second chances, like felons voting. Progressive prosecutors need to stand for diversion programs. We need to stand for these kind of things so that we can make sure that people are not saddled with the worst thing they ever did for the rest of their lives. We believe that people can be put back into being fruitful, productive, contributing. And this is the kind of thing we've got to do. But we cannot say we're progressive, so we can't be for public safety. And we cannot just yield it to the conservatives, because all they want to do is lock people up, more prisons, more jails, and that's all they want to do. They don't want to deal with mental health. They don't want to deal with gun control. They don't want to deal with things that are going to make the community truly safe. So let's not back off from this dialogue. Let's lean into it. I urge you guys to pick this book up. I think that you will find that it helps come up with some solutions to some serious problems. And thank you all very much for listening. I am your brother.
Keith, it was wonderful to have you again. We did a town hall. I think a lot of folks at Our Revolution have read your book and are huge fans. Wanted to get your take. You work closely. I remember a decade ago when we started the slow wage worker strikes. You were there at the forefront with workers. Barbara Lee was there. I want to get, and Barbara's been at the forefront of fights. What's been your experience? Why should the movement organize to make sure that Barbara is in the U.S. Senate?
Well, thanks for asking me that. Let me just say this. Let me just acknowledge a fact. When you're at home, whether you're in Missouri or you're in Oakland or you're in Minneapolis, we all follow the news and we try to figure out what's going on in Congress, but it's impossible even for a member of Congress to know everything that's going on in Congress. So what you really need is somebody you can trust. Barbara Lee has the most integrity of any person I've ever met. She has more integrity than anyone I've ever met. Barbara Lee, let me tell you, do you think that Barbara Lee was just the smartest person when she was the only vote to say we're not going to give a blank check to George Bush? Barbara Lee, when I met Barbara, she said, look, Keith, other people knew it was the mistake. They intellectually knew it was a mistake, but she had integrity and she had courage and she had faith. And so she stood alone and she said no. And guess what? Now everybody says she's right. She's right. Barbara was right. So what I'm saying to you is, yes, follow what's happening in Congress. Follow what's happening at your state capitol. Follow what's happening in your city. Be an informed voter. But it's impossible to know all the stuff going on. What you need to do is elect somebody who you can trust, who has unshakable, unquestionable integrity and honesty. And so when Barbara Lee says it, you can pretty much take it to the bank. It is absolutely gold. And people don't know. Barbara Lee, now, like, Barbara Lee works with anybody who's trying to work on something good and right. Barbara Lee had Republicans supporting her stuff to stop the forever wars. She would reach on the other side of the aisle. Now, I'm not one who thinks that bipartisanship is the most important thing. I really don't. I think integrity is the most important thing. But what I'm trying to tell you is that Barbara Lee is the kind of person who would work with somebody she disagrees with if she can get them to help her on something she does agree with. And we need solution-oriented leaders, folks, because the people need healthcare. The people need their medicine. The people need answers. And Barbara Lee knows how to persuade people to get on her side, even if they're not on her side on other things. So this is the thing about Barbara Lee: integrity, honesty, sincerity, unshakable faith in standing up for what's right, never backing down. And I'm gonna tell you, I know everybody who's in that race, and I ain't got nothing bad to say about none of them. I will tell you though that Barbara Lee is also extremely approachable and kind. Barbara Lee knows John Lewis, and when people were not in Congress and they'd go to Congress and they meet John Lewis, they'd say, I can't believe the guy's really this nice. Is he really that nice? Yeah, he is that nice. Guess who's also that nice? Barbara Lee. She has time for you. She'll listen to you. She's kind to you. She doesn't talk down to you. She doesn't talk to you like you're dumb. She talks to you. She believes in everybody's ability. And so I love a happy fighter for justice who's kind and giving and has unshakable integrity. Barbara Lee, hands down, best choice, no doubt.
Heath, thank you for joining our call tonight. It is hard in politics, right, to really distinguish who are the honest and trustworthy partners that we can work with. And your testimony about Barbara's character, I think, is incredibly important. I share that. Barbara truly believes in what she's fighting for. She's not doing it to get rich. She's not doing it to get a lot of fans on social media. She's doing it for all the right reasons. And we know that. So Keith, thank you again for sharing your truth. We've got a few minutes left, and I want to bring up our last two speakers. One is the U.S. representative from the great state of Missouri, represents St. Louis, Cori Bush. Cori Bush was endorsed by Our Revolution. We are excited to see her leading inside the United States Congress. Cori, tell us a little bit about why you're backing Barbara Lee.
Sure, and good evening, everyone. So first of all, let me just add to what you said. You all endorsed me in my primary. So I want to be clear about that. Like, you endorsed me in my primary, and that was very significant. And so the fact that you all are standing up supporting Barbara Lee right now for this primary, like that's important, because one thing that people said to me in my 2018 race, the one that I did not win, but you all supported me in the primary, people said, well, one thing I remember was how many text messages we received from Our Revolution. Like, they stayed on me, and so, so we can't, just push this work to the side, or it's like, okay, this is a part of the work. No, this is a big part of the work when you have organizations and groups and those folks that really support you, but will show up for you in a primary. So I want to shout out Our Revolution for that. And I, when we talk about Barbara Lee, and I call her OG, when we talk about her, entering into Congress, let me say entering into Congress was tough, because people started out saying, oh, nobody's going to like you because you're this progressive, and you talk about this and that, and people are going to box you in, but Barbara Lee didn't do that. Barbara Lee immediately grabbed me and immediately started to mentor me without me even asking for it. And she just started to pour into me. And she still does that. But not only does she do that, she, if she sees something or hears something, or she'll just send me a message like, are you okay? You know, well, then you should do this. Like, let me help you with this. Always, 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 always. She's always finding a way to help out, and to help us and to be personal with us. I call her OG because that's what she is. She's, you know, and it's OG, original gangster OG, you know, we have to give her props because, you know, she didn't have to step up for me. And when we say Barbara Lee speaks for me, Barbara Lee literally spoke for me because there were efforts to keep me off of the Judiciary Committee when I entered Congress. I wanted to be on the Judiciary Committee. I spoke about it for years before I was ever elected. And I was told, well, you're not an attorney, so you can't be on, you know, and my thing was, but I'm an activist and I should be on. I've been fighting for Black lives. I've been out there for more than 400 days with just one movement, not including all the other ones, the subsequent movements that I've been a part of. And you're telling me that I shouldn't be on the Judiciary Committee? But Barbara Lee spoke for me, and she spoke up in those meetings. And because of Barbara Lee, I ended up on the Judiciary Committee. So she really speaks for us. She speaks in back rooms and in places that we don't have access to. She speaks in those rooms because she has access. That's what we need. We need somebody on the Senate side who has that access, that can tell us what's going on, that can work with the House. It shouldn't be this split between the House and the Senate about what's going on. Just like we heard Keith Ellison say, that shouldn't be there. You know, he spoke about like knowing. We need to know what's happening there. We need to organize and work together. And so having that power there, that power that already just made a decision that I want to mentor you all and teach you and listen to you. That's what we need there. But what we're talking about is someone that, like he said, has such integrity. You know, she's like auntie to me, but she's auntie that understands racial justice issues. And so she worked to preserve and expand protections for everybody. She's empowered voters and ensured that our nation's civil rights legacy is protected. She even introduced legislation calling for the establishment of the first United States Commission on Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. She did that to make sure that we examine the effects of slavery and institutional racism. And people don't oftentimes want to hear about that or talk about that, but she understands the importance of it. She supports my Reparations Now resolution. She supports HR 40, you know, the study to study and develop this commission on reparations. When we talk about economic justice, you know, she has long advocated for increased resources for like workforce training, STEM education, and infrastructure. So she understands where we are and where we should be. And then we got to pay attention to how we are vocal about raising the wage and establishing a growing income for people because of the income inequality in this country. And so she wrote, she has a bill, she supported a bill about a racial justice package bill. She stood because she understood that lending her voice to that could really change things and bring others along, because she is that leader. That's why she introduced the Oligarch Act, establishing this wealth tax that has those 4 brackets. She understood that even in a time when other people weren't listening, she had to step up. When I think about climate justice, and I'm going through I'm thinking about things that I want to see from my own personal senator. So this isn't just about who I want to work with. What do I want to see in just a senator, period? This is who she is. When we talk about climate justice, she's working to combat and prevent climate change, and she has been long opposed to taxpayer funded giveaways to big oil and other major polluters. And we know this about her. She's, she co-sponsored the Green New Deal. That's who we need. We need somebody that understands like that our bodies are our own, and she works. She understands the ERA, something that I'm pushing hard for, as well as Ayanna Pressley, ensuring equal pay for equal work and expanding access to affordable childcare and protections for folks for women and the violence that we often perpetrated against us. And then if I can just touch on something that we know we hear all the time, but Congresswoman being such a leading voice for global peace, for global security, working to reduce conflict, working to end wars, promoting diplomacy. We see it all the time. And then for her work representing, being a representative, I'll say, in the United Nations General Assembly. I think that's what she's doing even this week, but going back to her casting that lone vote against that overly broad authorization that the AUMF, years ago, she didn't have to, but she stood. And I understand what it's like when you have to stand on your own, and it's heart-wrenching. It makes you second guess who you are. Even if you're walking in your integrity and your character, it still makes you second guess because of all the attacks and the criticisms that come along with that. You have to walk that out alone. And so I honor Barbara Lee. I honor her. I'm not just on here because I think that, she's a progressive and I want to stand up for her to be able to take this seat and because she's a Black woman. No, I honor her and I want to see her in this seat. I want to see us fight for her to get this seat because she deserves this seat, because she is the best person for this seat. Barbara Lee is she's like I call her an auntie, but she's more like a mom. I want to see her in this seat because she's going to fight for us in the face of everything that's coming her way. She's going to stand up for you and your legacy. That's who we need in this seat. Somebody that's uncompromising, somebody that has been through the fire and stood. That's her. And so I just want to say, every single time that you get ready to add some dollars to her campaign, see if you can double that. See if you can multiply it. If you can call somebody else to say, hey, Black women receive the least amount of donations when it comes to running congressional races. That's a proven fact. You can research that. And so why is that? It's not because we're not good enough. It's not because we don't have the intelligence or the integrity, or we don't have the character, or we don't have the knowledge. It's because of this implicit bias. And so we want you, whenever you think about donating, try to give a little bit more. Ask somebody else to donate. When you're going to get on the phones and make phone calls, or you're going to do some text banking, pick up an extra shift. We got to go hard for Barbara Lee, because if we don't do it, Gavin Newsom is not trying to do it. He's not trying to do it. And that's a shame that he's not trying to do it, but that's okay. We'll do it ourselves. So let's get Barbara Lee. I'm going to shut up there, but let's get Barbara Lee in this seat, you all. We will regret it if the day after the election comes and it's not Barbara Lee who is the person that will be that nominee.
Representative Cori Bush. Cori, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to testify. I want to say amen. Look, the future of the progressive movement, I would argue, is at stake, and we need the most effective progressive in the Senate. That's Barbara Lee. You said it, and we are with you. Thank you again for taking time. I want to bring up our last guest, who's U.S. Representative Mark Pocan from Wisconsin. Mark was also former co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He is co-chair of the CPC Political Action Committee and is a leading movement partner with Our Revolution. Mark, thank you for joining us tonight. Tell us about why you are in Barbara's corner and why we need to organize to elect her to the U.S. Senate.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks to Our Revolution for putting this together for Barbara. I guess I'm batting cleanup tonight. You've heard from Barbara. You've heard from Ro. You've heard from Mayana. You've heard from Keith. You've heard from Cori. Now you're going to hear from me. And I agree with every one of them on why we're backing Barbara Lee. She truly does speak for me. Look, I like Adam Schiff. I like Katie Porter. I'm not going to knock them in any way, but I am going to tell you about someone who is the most principled progressive in Congress, a progressive icon, and that is Barbara Lee. Yeah. Yes, as a gay man, I support Barbara because she has always been there for our community. She has fought tirelessly for HIV funding. Most recently on Appropriations Committee, when the Republicans were doing attacks on pride flags and drag shows and saying you can't discriminate against someone who believes marriage can be between a man and a woman only. Barbara Lee had our backs every single time we needed that support. And yes, I support Barbara Lee as a former CPC co-chair. There is no one who is always there for whatever we needed for the movement to make sure that we were advocating on behalf of progressive issues than Barbara Lee. From Medicare for All to the Green New Deal, you name the issue, Barbara Lee was always the first one there to fight the hardest for those issues. And yes, as a union member and someone who formed the labor caucus in Congress, I got to tell you, you heard Barbara herself. She's not advocating for raising the minimum wage. She's advocating for a living wage. She wants to make sure everyone who goes to work comes home at the end of the day safely and got a good family supporting wage and good benefits. And she's going to make sure that workers are heard over the corporate class. And that's so very important. But I'm going to give you the reason why I support her the most. It is her position on peace and justice. You know, when I first met Barbara, I was running for Congress, and I just got elected to my primary in 2012. And I ran into her in Washington, D.C. And first of all, I was so excited to meet Barbara Lee. But second, I came up to her and said, thank you for that incredibly principled vote you did on the Iraq war. No one else did what Barbara Lee did. And that's what you're going to get with Barbara Lee. You will admire the work that she does because she will always fight for you no matter what. You know, we started the Pentagon Spending Reduction Caucus in Congress. And let me tell you a little bit about Barbara on that. A few years back, you know, we had tried kind of in a nascent way to try to cut 1% from the Pentagon budget. And Barbara, I think we got 70 votes back then. But then, thanks to Barbara's organizing, working with the movement, working with organizations, we came out a little bolder and said, how about a 10% cut to the Pentagon? Now, of course, she's got bills that cut deeper, but this is the vote we had. And we got over 90 people to join us in doing that. That is the work that Barbara Lee does. The bill to audit the Pentagon, they failed 5 audits. The last audit, they can't even account for 39% of their equipment. The bill to audit the Pentagon is Barbara Lee's bill. And guess what? It's a bipartisan bill because Barbara Lee knows how to get things done. And we need to audit the Pentagon. There is no way we can continue going down the path where we lose F-35s and the rest. Barbara Lee is that advocate. So as chair of the State and Foreign Operations Subcommittee on Appropriations, she fought for diplomacy over all else. She will be that voice that the Senate so desperately needs, that doesn't talk about putting more money into defense contractors, but instead talking about using diplomacy as a way to try to advance positions in the world. So if you care about waste, fraud, and abuse in the Pentagon, if you care about stopping never-ending wars, if you care about peace and justice, Barbara Lee is your candidate. The Senate needs Barbara Lee. I just want to thank everyone who's been on this call, listening to everyone tonight. You've heard the passion that we have for our good friend, Barbara Lee, but we now are asking something back. We are asking you to do everything you can to make sure that Barbara Lee is the next senator from California. And the way that happens is you get active with the campaign. You volunteer. You agree to make phone calls. You talk to your neighbors. You're knocking on doors. As Cori Bush said, you're donating. And trust me, those dollars, those small dollars mean so much when there's going to be a lot of big dollars and big interests in that Senate race in California. That is the fuel that will drive Barbara's campaign, are those dollars. We have to elect the strongest progressive candidate that we possibly can. We have to elect a real partner for Bernie Sanders in the Senate, and that person is Barbara Lee. Our Revolution, thank you for endorsing her. It is a powerful and important endorsement, as are all the endorsements from her colleagues tonight, and many more, by the way, that aren't on the call, who love Barbara Lee and want to see her be that outstanding progressive voice in the Senate. But if you want to transform the Senate into something that it is not, you want to make it more progressive, you want to give the allies that are needed to do the work that we're doing in the House, she can do, and get that work done in the Senate, we have to elect Barbara Lee. She doesn't just speak for me, she speaks for you and every single person who's listening today. So please get active with Barbara's campaign. Thank you, Our Revolution. Really glad to be a part of this call tonight.
Mark, we always save the best for last, so thank you for staying on the call and giving us that rousing call to action. For everybody who's listening, let's bring up the top lines. Barbara Lee is the most progressive candidate. She is the most effective progressive. She is a trailblazer, and the progressive movement leaders are in her corner, and the grassroots are too. In order to win this, in order to defeat the establishment, in order to defeat the corporations that are pouring money in that want to buy this seat, we've got to organize. We've got to organize. And that means we need you to invest your time. If you can donate, please do, but also donate financially. But if you can donate your time, join our Progressives Barbara Lee distributed organizing team. Sign up, link is in the chat. In addition to that, we're going to be marching and fighting with Barbara, because that's how we're going to win this race. We're going to champion the issues that we've always been fighting for. Coming up in the next few weeks, we're going to hold an event in San Francisco. Well, let me start here. We're going to have a healthcare town hall in California with U.S. Representative Pramila Jayapal, with Ro Khanna, and with Ash Kalra. We're going to talk about what it takes to pass CalCare, universal healthcare in California, and why that's important to help set the stage for passing Medicare for all at the federal level. We're also going to have a town hall in person in San Francisco to talk about making sure that our education system works for everybody. Not sure if we have a slide up for that, but we will email out the information. A live in-person town hall hosted by an Our Revolution group, the San Francisco Education Alliance. And last but not least, we are working on a town hall in California to end fossil fuels and to make sure that drilling, neighborhood drilling in front of schools and in backyards does not happen. Big oil is spending a lot of money to defeat the will of the people. And we're joining with Barbara and many other frontline communities to fight back. This campaign, at the end of the day, is a movement about the issues that matter to us. And so with that, I want to encourage all of you to join with us and organize, become a member of Our Revolution, donate your time, donate your money, but most importantly, let's organize to win this race. And that's how we end our calls. Say it with me, brothers and sisters. When we organize,
We
Yeah.
win.
when we organize,
We win.
when we organize,
We win.
thank you and good night, everyone.